Divine connections. Divine connections. Hello, you all. I'm Diana Brienne. Well, I got to thinking today about divine connections. Those are those people that come into our lives to connect us from one place or one situation to another. You know, I believe divine connections can come in many, many forms. They can be people that enter our lives for a lifetime, and then they can be people that enter our lives for a moment. I can tell you, I have had more divine connections than I can even count or probably even remember. And so I thought this is a great topic to talk about. And I wanted to share with you my perception of what divine connections are, and some experiences that I've had with them. Well, I believe they are people that God lets into our life, to our lives, in order to help us get to that next place or level or situation that we are meant to be in. And you know, I remember one of my very first divine connections. Well, I had a lot more before that, but one of the ones that stand out is I had just moved to California. I was 19 years old. I didn't have a job. I was really, really looking for a job. So I started taking a college class at a nearby community college. I had just come out of a 4-year college, even though I'd only been in that 4-year college for a year, and just moved there. Didn't really know anyone. I had some relatives, but that was it. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I didn't know if what was going to happen, and I did not know, what direction to take. And then during a break on that class, it was a psychology class, and I sat on a bench. I was sitting outside on our break, and one of the an older lady students, came and sat down by me, and we got to talking. And she made a suggestion, career move wise, that actually made all the difference in the world. And she suggested it. Well, the next day I got up and I started calling around different schools and different places that might give me this opportunity, and all those doors were shut. Actually, she had made a suggestion that was less than what I ended up doing, but it is what got me in that direction. She was my divine connection. I don't think I ever saw her again. And other than through that class, that was it. That was a one-time deal. But I remember her. She was a divine connection that changed the course of my life, that took me in so many directions and gave me so many opportunities at a very early age. And another divine connection that stands out, well, my husband most certainly was a divine connection. And you all know that story where I woke up one morning and I just knew I was going to meet the man of my dreams, my husband. So I drove down the road that morning to go to the gym, and I kept looking and looking, and I saw men and people, but it was not any of those. I got to the gym and I just felt this overwhelming presence of this man around me, but it wasn't any of those. I went to, I think, some place called Del Taco in California, and there was really good looking guys that were ordering tacos, but it wasn't any of them. And I went to work that night, and I knew I wasn't going to meet anybody on a Saturday night. And so I had a date after, but who walks in but my future husband? And we only talked for a moment, but it was instant. We both knew. He called me the next morning, woke me up out of bed, said, "You're going to be my wife." And I said, "I know that, but call me back in 3 hours when I'm awake." He was a divine connection. But what led up to that divine connection were several other divine connections that got me to that place to work. And his divine connections was, well, divine timing, really, because his plane broke down, and that was how I met him. He wasn't even supposed to be there. And so, there's divine timing and divine connections, and when things don't go right, but I call those divine things that don't go right for our benefit. And so his plane broke down, and we met, and our lives forever changed, and we have 3 children, and almost 30 years later. But up until that point, I would have never got a job there had it not been for a lady I met at a Quick Stop who made a phone call, just out of the blue, made a phone call. I said, oh, no, you don't have to do that, because there was a place that I really wanted to work, but you had to have a pass to get on, and I didn't have a pass, and so I couldn't go put an application in. Well, she called for me, and I don't even know how she knew the number, but she did, and I was just there back before cell phones, to make a telephone call to my mom, and I talked to her. She was a cashier, and she said, honey, I will make call for you, and she did. She was wonderful. She was amazing. God bless her. And away I went through the guard gates and in there, and I got the job. I got a job. And a year later, I met my husband. So she was a divine connection. And a little old lady. And prior to that, to end up even wanting the desire to work there, I was giving up my apartment for the second time, an expensive apartment, and more than I could really afford. And I went over there, and before I went over to the office to put in the request to, leave the apartment, I met this. I said, dear Lord, if you want me to keep this apartment, please make it happen. And otherwise, this is it, the final time. And my mom said, this is the final time. You go over there, because she was visiting me. And I went over there. I was going to move back to Palm Springs with my mom. And that was going to be, just go back. And I really didn't want to go back there, because it wasn't right for me at that period of my life, even though I'd lived there before. And it had been right for me at a different time. And so nonetheless, I decided to go over to the office, and then there was this lady standing in line, and she said, I'm looking for a roommate. And I said, oh, you're perfect. Would you like to move in with me? She moved in with me. Lo and behold, she was connected to the place I really ended up wanting to work, that I ended up a year later meeting my husband. And I mean, it's just one divine connection after the other. And I could tell you some even more really significant divine connections that I've had in my life that are miracles, just absolute miracles. I've had one right after the other. And especially sometimes when I didn't even know what direction to take, I didn't know what to do. I knew what was in my heart. I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get there. And I would just say, God, I've done my very, very, very best. And now I'm going to turn it over to you. And if there's something else I can do to make it happen, I will. But I'm going to maybe move on in a different direction, or just tread water, or the same direction, or whatever. But I've had so many experiences like that with divine connections, divine timing, things not going the way I want. There was one major event, and I'm not going to go into detail, that I was so upset because it didn't work out. It did not work out. And I said, God, I'm really upset. I'm really, really upset. This should have worked out. I can tell you, probably one of the biggest blessings I've ever got was because that did not work out for me at that time. And it worked out later, but it didn't work out at that time. God had perfect timing. I had my own timing, and God had his timing. And he had a far bigger blessing for me than I even dreamed of. And so, I just believe in divine timing, divine connections, divine blessings. And I thought I would just come on here and share my testimony about divine connections. Well, I hope you subscribe to my channel, and I will hope to talk with you all soon again. So from my house to your house, God bless you, and I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.